What's up, gamers? Today we're talking about how to max your tax so that you can make some fat stacks. So you can look at my economy tab here and you can see that I'm doing pretty well. I'm getting about 1,000 ducats in profit every month, and we're in 1576, we're about halfway through the game. So how did I achieve this? The answer is I've been maxing out my tax rates as well as increasing my tax base, obviously. I'm not going to talk about tax base too much, that's this number up here, because I think if you go on YouTube or go on the Steam guides or whatever, that's what people kind of are focusing on, talking about. Everyone's giving out advice like, you know, high control, high market access, build RGOs, this kind of stuff. It's all true, it's all good advice, but I feel like that's kind of, I feel like all that advice has been given plenty of times. So I want to talk more about tax rates and how to bump up your tax rates to maximize your tax numbers. So you can take a look at my commons tax. You can see there I've got a very, very high tax rate, 62.53%, and that's accounting for not quite half, but maybe like 40% of my total income is coming from just my commons estates tax. So we're going to talk a bit about how and why I've done that. But one other thing just to talk about before we jump into that is the way that your expenses are scaled is with your economic base. So I think they're going to change how this is calculated, but currently it's just all of your tax base plus your trade income. I think it's going to become half your tax base plus some other stuff. But either way, the higher your tax base, the higher your expenses. That doesn't account for how good your tax rates are. So if you have very low tax rates, increasing your tax base won't actually increase your profit every month, because it'll increase your income, but also increase your expenses. So the way to actually increase your profit every month is to increase your sliders up, increase those tax rates as much as possible. The higher your tax rates, the more efficient it is to then invest in your economy and build up your tax base. Cool, so how do you increase your taxes? Well, basically there are two numbers that limit you. One is the maximum tax. That's the highest you're allowed to put your tax slider. That's fairly self-explanatory. And then there's happiness. So the happier an estate is, the higher their satisfaction equilibrium is, the more that you can pile taxes on them. So you can see for my commons estate, they have a huge amount of plus modifiers here that are making them more happy, which means that even with a minus 62.53% penalty from their massive tax rate, they're still coming out at 50% happy. If you turn on automation, the game will just automatically try and balance your tax rate to be 50%, which I think is perfectly acceptable. I've played the game and haven't really had any problems. Very occasionally there are reasons to turn off automation and fiddle with it yourself, but I think it's fine to just leave that automation on. So how do you increase your tax rate? Well, obviously you need to increase whichever is constraining you. If your estates are happy, but your maximum tax rate is so your maximum tax threshold is too low, then you need to increase your maximum tax. On the other hand, the situation I'm in, for example, with my lords, is that I have a very high maximum tax number, but they aren't happy enough, so I need to make them happier if I want to tax them more. So whichever one is lower, you need to increase. I would suggest that over the course of your campaign, you should probably be thinking about that question: how do I increase my tax? Which number is low? Is it my maximum tax or is it my happiness? It should be one of the most important questions you're asking yourself repeatedly throughout the campaign across all of your estates. It's really important, as I said, that as your tax base grows, in order to have an efficient collection of tax, you need to also be increasing your happiness and your maximum tax rates. So let's talk about maximum tax first, because I think that's the harder modifier to come by. So one way is to have laws and policies in your estate laws. So distribution of power, you get that I think at the start of the game. I've gone with favour the ruler, and that's giving me a plus 5% maximum tax rate. There are also other options which do different things and affect your maximum tax differently, but I went for favour the ruler. You also get the rights of the nobility and rights of the burghers. You also will go on to get rights of the clergy and rights of the commoners. I think you get one of those each per age, and one of your options is going to be to curtail. So you have curtailed the burghers. That's going to be quite a big maximum tax bonus. I think there are various options that can affect your maximum tax rates. So if you want more maximum tax, that would be one place to look. Another big source of maximum tax rate is going to be weak estates. So if you lower your estate's power, it will increase your tax rate, your maximum tax, rather. So for every 1% below 25% that your estate power is at, you get 0.5% of a bonus to your maximum tax. So you can see my lords have just under 12% estate power, So I'm getting a 6.55% increase to their maximum tax. If you have a look at my commons are very, very weak. So they only have 3% power, so I'm getting a very, very big bonus of almost 11%. 10.87 is a very big bonus. Another way you can get some maximum tax temporarily is in your parliament. You can request additional taxes. This lets you increase your maximum tax by 25% just for 1 year. Obviously you can only press it when you call a parliament, so that's once every 5 years. So for only 1 out of every 5 years you can have a very high increase in maximum tax, and also it's going to cost you 50% support, obviously, so you need to be pressing your parliament agendas. So I think this is quite situational, but it's just something to be aware of. And the final big way to get more maximum tax is the serfdom societal value, which gives you up to a 20% bonus to maximum tax for the peasant estates only. Obviously it's only for the peasants, but it's very, very big. That 20% is a huge modifier. Okay, so those are the ways that you can increase your maximum tax. So how do you increase your happiness for your estate so that you can actually then fill that maximum tax allowance? So the first big way is going to be granting out privileges. Every estate will have a bunch of privileges, and you can grant them to increase their happiness. It will also increase their power. As we already discussed, low power is good for maximum tax. So there's a balancing act between giving them privileges to increase their happiness, but it also increases their power, which is bad. So you need to walk a line between how many privileges you give out. One thing to kind of note is that most of the privileges follow roughly every 1% happiness equilibrium bonus will come at the cost of 10% estate power. There are some privileges, like this one in particular, that don't follow that pattern. So I'm getting plus 5% satisfaction equilibrium for only plus 33% estate power. So I'm getting a bit of a kind of beneficial trade-off here. And also I like the modifiers. So I don't really care about the galley cost, but I want to progress to naval. So this is a privilege that I'm very happy to give out. I'm very glad that all the numbers line up like this. So you can see I've only given a few privileges out to my nobles, and I've given a few more out to my clergy, a few more out to my burghers, and a few out to my commons. And all of those privileges, they might be for other reasons, but one of the big reasons for giving them out is that it's going to help them be happy. Another big source of your happiness is going to come from values. So being decentralized can give you quite a big bonus, although I think centralization is better, so you can see I've gone full centralization. Going traditionalist can also give you a bit of a bonus, and going communalism also gives you a bit of a bonus as well. So that can help push your satisfaction equilibriums up. There are also various laws and policies that can affect your happiness thresholds. I won't go through all of them, there are loads of them, but you will notice that as you play the game, you're choosing laws. One of the things to consider will be the estate happiness threshold, and obviously making your estates happy so you can tax them might be worth trade-offs like making them more powerful or reducing your trade income or whatever. Another good source of happiness is having high crown power. So having a high crown power does many things, but one of the things it does is increase your satisfaction equilibrium by quite a decent amount there. You can see I've got 56% power, and that's giving me almost 10%, or just under 9.37% bonus, so that's quite big. And that also goes hands in hand with weak estates, right? If your estates are weak, all your estates are weak, that means that you get bonus maximum tax on all of them, and it means that your crown power must therefore be high, because it's all each estate's power and your crown power is all in relation to each other. So high crown power is making your estates happy so that you can tax them more, and it's giving you maximum tax so that you can both of those things together mean that you can increase your taxes. So striving for high crown power is a good way to increase your taxes, because it benefits both those limiting factors. Estates also get some happiness from high stability, so having high stability is good for making your estates happy, and also high legitimacy is good. Legitimacy itself doesn't give you happiness or give your estates happiness, but low legitimacy will give you penalties, so you want to avoid having too low of your legitimacy. You want to have high legitimacy to keep your estates happy, and also high legitimacy gives you a bit of crown power bonus, and as we just said, crown power is good for happiness, so kind of indirectly high legitimacy will help with this. Okay, so we've talked about how to increase your maximum tax and how to increase the happiness, which should both give you high tax rates, but I'm not done. There are a few more things I want to talk about. So the next thing it will be to kind of explain something that I need to then build on. So what I want to explain is how the tax base or how the tax system works. So when you build buildings, or you invest in RGOs, that increases the amount of gold that is generated in a province. So I've just taken Walden as an example because it's got quite a big tax base, because saffron is quite a valuable resource. So the way this works is all the money that is generated in this location is paid into a pot. That's your potential tax base. You then lose some of that tax base in proportion to your control. So you can see I've got 75% control, so I'm losing about 25% of my potential tax base. So that leaves me with 50 ducats of real tax base. The tax base is then divided between your estates. It's divided according to population, but nobles have a higher impact per pop compared to clergy, and clergy are higher compared to burghers, and then burghers are higher compared to commons. So you can see with only 89 nobles and 228 clergy, the 89 nobles are taking 24%, 228 clergy are taking 10%, and then all the rest, the other 35,000 and few hundred commons together, take the remaining 64%. So one thing to note here is that the commons are taking a very, very large slice of the pie. So having a high tax rate on the commons is going to be very impactful. You can see of the 22 ducats of income, or almost 23 ducats of income from this location, 20.42 of those ducats are coming from the commons tax, and then only 2.47 of those ducats are coming from my lords. And then I'm a Catholic country, so I can't tax the clergy. And because this is a rural location, the burghers, I don't have any burghers, there is 0 burghers, so the burgher tax rate is irrelevant. If you go around your country and click on all the rural locations, you will notice that this share percentages are going to look almost identical. And the reason for that is the number of lords and the number of clergy in a location, in a rural location, is proportional to the total population. So you're only going to have lords, clergy, and commons, and so the more commons that are born there or migrated there, the more lords that can be supported, and the more clergy that can be supported. So I think it's something like 0.25% will be lords, and 0.5% will be clergy, and then the remaining 99.25% of your population will be peasants. This means that it doesn't matter how your population changes, overall, your population, the tax share out at the end to all the estates is going to be proportionally the same in all your rural locations. The only exceptions are if you build more buildings. So if you build monasteries and cathedrals, and I've got, because I'm in the Age of Reformation, I've got some Age of Reformation things going on, so this is giving me an extra 50 clergy here. But if you click around, all my rural locations, that little coloured slider here is looking very, very similar between all of them, right? You can see that slider's not changed very much at all. On the other hand, if you look at your cities, actually my capital's not a good example, but if you look at like Colchester, you can see, because I've got loads and loads of burghers here, because I've built a city and I've built lots of buildings, the burghers are taking a huge share of the tax, because burghers per pop are much more impactful on the final tax amount. So even though my lords and clergy are still proportional to the total population, because the burghers, who make up the rest of the, or most of the rest of the percentage, are much more impactful on the tax share, they get to take 85% here, and so that's going to change a bit. See here, I've got another 85%, but in Dover it's slightly less, I guess just because there's fewer burghers in relation to commoners. So what? Who cares? Well, what that means is, firstly, in the early game, when you are mostly rural locations, it means that having a high tax rate on your commons is going to be the most important thing, because the commons are taking the biggest slice of the pie. So then you want to take the biggest slice from their pie, because if the commons are getting 32.64 ducats, the clergy are getting 5, and the lords are getting 12.3, I want to tax the commons because that's the biggest share in this location. There are also a couple of other things that kind of push you towards high tax rates on commons. Having a high tax rate on commons is good and easy. So as we've already noticed, the commons are very, very weak. And the reason for this is they get very little base political power from their populations. So you see, if you add all these numbers together, that's like, what, a bit more than 200, like 210, 215, something like that. So even though they've got loads of percentage-based modifiers, it doesn't matter that I'm like tripling their power, because they start out with like 200, and then after all the modifiers are applied, they've only got 600. If you compare that to like the lords out of the gate have 954 power from their 38,000 population. So even without any modifiers whatsoever, the nobles are more powerful than the commoners' final estate power number. And then obviously they go through the same process of then being modified by all these percentage modifiers. So what that means is you can give out loads of privileges to your commoners, and it doesn't matter. They're going to have almost no political power in your country, no matter what. Even if you give them quadruple or quintuple their estate power, you give them like 10 privileges that each give 50% power. Even if I gave them every single privilege that in this list, their estate power probably wouldn't go above like 5%, just because they're such a weak base. They have such a weak base political power. The other thing about the peasants is that they are by default happy, so the base value for every country for your commoners' happiness is 60%. For your burghers, it's only 50%. For your clergy, it's only 30%. And then for your nobles, it's 40%. So that means that your commoners, because they're so weak, you get a high tax rate, and you can give them lots of privileges to make them happy, and they have a higher base happiness anyway. So in general, it's very easy to make your commons pay a very high tax. And you really want that, because they're taking the highest tax share in your rural areas. And it's for these reasons that I think in your societal values, you really need to push serfdom. I think one of the mistakes I made was not pushing hard enough towards serfdom early enough, because maximum tax for peasants is so valuable, right? They're the most valuable estate in the kind of early to mid game when you mostly have income from rural settlements, when your tax base is mostly dominated by rural settlements. They're the ones you want to tax the most. So getting high tax rates on them is really important. It's really valuable. And it's also giving you raw materials output as well, right? So this is like super, super good. Another point about the sort of serfdom versus free subjects debate is free subjects reduces your maximum tax by 10%. This is not minus 10% to your estate tax income. It's minus 10% to the maximum tax threshold. So if it's by default 30, oops, I've lost my tooltip. If it's 30, the base value is 30. Let's say your commons are getting 100 ducats. You're taking 30 of that because you have 30% max tax. Let's just suppose you have that 30% tax rate. If you then go full into free subjects, it goes from 30% tax rate, maximum tax, to 20% maximum tax. So your tax rate on the commoners will become 20%. So now you're only making 20 ducats. So you've lost a third of your income from your peasant estate. Obviously, as the game goes on, you get more modifiers, then the minus 10 versus plus 20 is going to become less relevant compared to all of these other things that are helping increase my maximum tax. But I think, especially early, in the first sort of 200, 250 years, it's really important that you push towards serfdom, not free subjects. I think free subjects is a bit of a noob trap, because I don't think that monthly prosperity or pop promotion speed are as important. Well, there are other ways to get those modifiers, but there are not very many ways to get this modifier. Maximum tax is a hard modifier to come by, whereas pop promotion speed and monthly prosperity are quite easy modifiers to come by. You can get those quite easily. And the food consumption I just don't care about. And even if I did care about the food consumption, nobility controlled serfdom counteracts your food consumption completely. And then the final thing I guess I'll just say for the why I think serfdom is better than free subjects is if you look at the monthly prosperity modifier, I just want to show you the prosperity map right now. And you can tell me if you think that I need an extra plus 0.1% monthly prosperity. So the thing about prosperity is that it increases by default. You get a monthly bonus of plus 0.1% every month anyway. And that can be reduced by satisfaction. But you can give out a relatively good privilege to your burghers called market fares, which is 5% satisfaction for only 25% power. And it gives you plus 1.1% monthly prosperity at the cost of a little bit of progress towards decentralization. I have had this the entire game, and yet I've managed to fully centralize. I'm at 100% centralization. I can talk about how in another video if people are interested. But basically, I just don't think that having low satisfaction will probably counter completely the base value. You can see here that my people are kind of happy. And that's offset the base increase, which has just left market fares and the fact that this is an origin for a colonial charter to increase it. But even if we find something that's not an origin for a colony, like here, you can see it's still got a very big monthly increase because of market fares, and that's a very good one to kind of keep for most of the game. So I don't think prosperity increase is a very important modifier. Like the entirety of Europe, just to show that map mode again. Oops, I've lost it. Prosperity. The entirety of Europe is just chilling at like 100% prosperity. Like increasing prosperity is just not a big deal. It doesn't matter. or it does matter. It's a really important modifier, don't get me wrong. You want 100% prosperity, but like it's just not hard to get prosperity. There are lots of ways, or market fair is a very good way to, this is plus 0.2%, this will be good enough for most of the game, for most provinces. I can't imagine that you're actually going to see much value out of pushing free subjects to get that monthly prosperity. Hello, it's Future Me here. I missed one very important point in my original take, which is that plus prosperity is very good. You want 100% plus prosperity in all of your locations, because it does a lot of very nice things for you, including monthly development, but you can't go above 100% prosperity. So once you hit 100 prosperity in all of your locations, monthly prosperity isn't doing anything for you. The only thing it does for you is it helps you get to 100% prosperity faster. And you're very, very, very rarely going to dip below. Unless you're fighting loads of wars and you're constantly getting sieged, then that might it might be a good modifier. But assuming that you're at peace, or assuming that you're competently fighting a war where you're not letting all of your provinces get sieged down 24/7, then once you've hit 100% prosperity, you just don't care anymore about your monthly increase. You're just going to sit at 100% prosperity as long as you make sure that your monthly increase is higher than your decay from satisfaction. Then you don't need any more modifiers. I could have plus 65% per month towards prosperity in London, and it's not doing anything for me. And then for prop promotion speeds, again, there are lots of other sources of prop promotion speed. If we go to like London, it's my capital, and we look at the promotion speed, I've got, you can see having a high literacy for my peasants is already a plus 100% modifier, and then you can see there are lots of other bonuses that I'm getting. So adding another plus 100% modifier in here would be good, it would be helpful, I'd like that, but it's not worth it, I don't think. Or maybe it's not going to be worth it for a long time. In another 100 years, when I have even more towns and cities and I'm very, very, very industrialised and urbanised, maybe, but right now it's not a problem. And the final thing to kind of say on that as well is, even if we assume that increasing our promotion is really important, if you have a higher peasant tax income, you generate more money, so you'll be able to build more buildings more quickly with a full push towards serfdom. Compared to if you have free subjects, you'll be able to, once you build the building, you'll be able to promote all the peasants you need to work in that building faster, but it will take you longer to build the building in the first place. So I actually think the economy, like if you weigh the cost versus the benefit of, I have less money to start with, but once I build a building it fills up with workers faster, I think it comes out, or to me it makes sense, that building the builder faster in the first place is better, and building more buildings faster is better. Even if I can't fully staff those buildings to begin with, or for a bit longer, it's going to take longer for all those buildings to fully staff. It doesn't matter because I'm building them faster. They could work at half efficiency for longer. If I build one building here and one building, let's suppose I build a building here and here and here and here and here, because I've got high peasant tax, they're going to start generating me back money, even if it's going to take a while for all of the pops to promote into their role. It doesn't matter because I've built all those buildings. They're all producing me money, and I'm taking a bigger share of the peasant tax. So I've got one final kind of tip for how to actually max out your serfdom. So one of the things I've done is, you can see I managed to push 67.48 towards serfdom, but my monthly push is only 0.35. So as long as you're allowed to go beyond your current monthly push limit, as long as you don't start tipping the other way, you will just sit at whatever your current progress is. So at one point I did have plus 0.67 towards monthly serfdom because I had my cabinet working on it and I hadn't given out the fewer levies estate privilege. But once I built up to 67.48, I couldn't push any further than that. So then I just made a decision, well, I can't push any more than 67.48 towards serfdom. I don't think I'm going to be able to find many more sources of monthly progress, so I'm just going to call it quits. So I've given up here. And what I've done is I've allowed these pushes towards monthly serfdom to remain, but now I'm starting to give things that push towards free subjects. And as long as my monthly push stays at 0 or towards serfdom, I will never move away from my 67.48 progress to serfdom for the rest of the game. That means that I can give these privileges to the peasant estate to make them happy, even though it pushes me towards free subjects. That means they're happy enough that I can actually have a really high tax rate. You can see I'm at 62.53% tax rate currently, and I could even go another 2% more. So maybe once my estates have recovered more, they're all a bit unhappy with me, but once they're more recovered, I can go and I could give them another one that pushes them towards free subjects, because I don't care anymore about if this is plus 0.01 towards serfdom or plus 0.67 towards serfdom. It doesn't make a difference, right? Either way, I can't push any more than 67 where I'm already at. So I might as well take advantage of this kind of extra capacity that I have of push towards serfdom to implement things that give me push towards free subjects, but also provide me with another benefit that I like. Okay, I think that is everything I want to talk about today. I got some nice feedback on my last video about regulars, so thank you if you said something nice about that. I think I might come back and do like another video because I think they've changed a lot of things and they're planning to change some more things. I think that video still stands because my main point was frontage is good. So I might come back and talk about some things again about maybe. I've also got some other ideas for videos that I want to talk about, so that you might be seeing some more of me. So yeah, bye.